Thanks, Senator Crapo. Senator Tester from Montana is recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Brown, Ranking Member Toomey, and thank you for being here today, Professor. I appreciate you putting yourself out there. I will tell you I have been disappointed by comments criticizing where the nominee was born, where she grew up, what her education was, going after her heritage. I think we really need to focus on our ideas, and there should be no place for that. Professor Omarova, I appreciate meeting with you earlier this week, and you have a compelling story. I am sorry that you had to face what I see as unfair and unacceptable attacks. I do, however, have some significant concerns about positions that you have taken, including as a witness before this banking committee related to our financial system, bank regulation, and on legislation related to the OCC. In my office, we discussed your opposition to a bill that I helped write, the Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief, and Consumer Protection Act, which was signed into law back in 2018. You've described it as dismantling and weakening regulation and supervision. The OCC is responsible for enforcing, implementing, and overseeing provisions of this statute. So what specifically did you oppose about my bipartisan legislation?
Thank you, Senator, for this question. I testified in connection with S-2155 to express my deep concern about inadvertently loosening the regulatory oversight of the largest financial institutions that engage in high-risk trading operations that do not necessarily follow the traditional relational banking model. However, as I said in my testimony, I was fully supportive, and I remain fully supportive, of tailoring regulatory requirements and lightening the regulatory burden on community banks and smaller banks that do not engage in such activity.
Thank you for that. What do you consider a big bank?
It is difficult to say in terms of the specific bright line asset size. I know that now it's the law of the land that anything below $250 billion is not considered a systemically important financial institution.
Do you agree with that?
I agree with that, yes.
Okay, so you think big banks are the ones over $250 billion?
I believe that a bank that has $2 trillion in assets, that's a big bank.
And do you believe that S-2155 helped those banks? Yes or no will work? Yes or no will work? I heard you say earlier that you thought
yes,
helped
yes.
the big banks.
I think in indirectly it might have helped the big banks.
Okay. This has been hit before on this committee, but I want to touch on it again. You've written that the private sector doesn't allocate capital well, and that private capital allocation causes destabilization. Do you think that your National Investment Authority would do a better job at this?
The National Investment Authority proposal is meant not to supplant or replace private allocation of capital, but to supplement it and provide an additional set of investment opportunities for private capital in the kinds of projects that naturally and rationally do not get funded in private markets because of their high risk or long-term to profitability.
So it is to supplement, not to supplant.
Yes.
Although, and this was brought up by Senator Crapo and others earlier, a recorded event earlier, you said you wanted small coal, oil, and gas companies to go bankrupt to combat climate change. The challenge here is that in my real life, I farm. I'm a small family farmer in eastern Montana. There could be somebody in a position that would say, you know what? The big guys are far more efficient. They do a much better job. Our food security would be better served if you went out of business. Now, there's arguments for that. I can make arguments on the other side, by the way, and damn good ones. Do you see how risky that is to make that statement?
I'm sorry, Senator.
That statement about taking certain industries and saying, you know what, I believe this, so we need to do it.
Right.
With one person making that potential decision, and you are we have oversight, but you're a one-man shop. Do you see how dangerous that could be?
Senator, I do not intend to advocate that kind of a position. That particular statement about oil and gas companies going bankrupt, as I said, that was taken out of context, and I actually misspoke. That was not well framed. My intention was actually saying was exactly the opposite, that we need to help those companies to get restructured.
Thank you for being here. We have additional questions for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.